Today started differently. We drove 7 hours until nearly 1:30 in the morning to get to Memphis, got to bed around 3:30, and for the first time in 30 NFL stadiums in 30 days, there was no stadium here. There was a hospital, and it was St. Jude. Now, as I've said, I usually don't tell charities about raising money for them. That's the whole point of chaotic good. You just do it because you're supposed to. But St. Jude, they found out because I jumped through a table. And when they reached out and they offered me to come to the campus, it was an opportunity to see what we were working for, and I couldn't pass that up. It was when I walked onto that campus that I felt the smallest I had ever been. We've raised lots of money for charity before, and I vet every charity that I support. But it's different behind a screen. This was real, and this was in front of me. We were told the story of Danny Thomas, an entertainer whose efforts created this. A place for every child to go to seek treatment regardless of socioeconomic status, race, religion, or background. And it was the simple quote that was etched just about everywhere in St. Jude that stood out to me. The quote that said, "No child should die in the dawn of life." The research centers awed me, the innovation, but most importantly, the collaboration that St. Jude did every day, reaching out to other countries to try and reduce childhood mortality due to serious illness. We had walked Hall of Fames, museums, and stadiums, and now we were here. We saw the history of St. Jude on the walls, and as you can imagine, it was an incredibly sobering experience. The theme of this trip has been the people, and here it was no different. We met staff members who used to be former patients, and now who work for the very organization that helped save them years ago. I spoke with patient family members, saw videos and pictures of children celebrating things like no more chemo parties, some as young as 1. There were cameras and media, and to say that I was overwhelmed was an understatement. I'm just a guy who makes goofy football videos in his basement and tries to do as much good as possible. And now I was here, in a place whose mission was to try and save children. I had found myself in something bigger. And it was while we were finishing up at St. Jude that something kind of amazing happened.
Hey there.
You're gonna be in Nashville? Wait. Oh my. So.
This was the experience I needed to have on the halfway mark of this trip, because it made me even more motivated than ever. We had a goal of $100,000, which, as you know, we hit in 10 days in the back of an Uber on the way to Baltimore at 12:30 in the morning. And when I envisioned this months ago, of course, I had push goals and ambitions that this could be more. And after St. Jude, I was determined to hit every single one of those goals. I'm not stopping. After leaving the campus, we had a 3-hour drive to Nashville, the final drive for the 3 of us on this leg of the tour. For weeks, it'd just been Johnny and I, but meeting Pastor over the past few days, he quickly became part of the group. And so for that entire car ride, we of course had to play some tunes.
I'm not crazy, I'm just a little unwell, I know. Right now you can't tell. And I saw you looking down at me from that lighthouse. You were so bright.
We got to Nashville, headed to Nissan Stadium, and were greeted by James and a very special guest, the Titans superfan himself, RBT. Like Engraven, I wanted to share this experience with a fan of the team, and I could think of no better person than Samuel. And it just so happened that this was his first stadium tour. And this stadium tour was a little bit different, because on the horizon, just like in Buffalo, there's a new stadium coming into town. In 2027, the Titans are getting a new field. And while there is a ton of excitement in the air, I was just grateful to be able to witness this piece of history while I was here. And as I was walking around the stadium, you could see the evolution of what had come before it. You see, Nissan Stadium used to be LP Field at a time, which was sponsored by LP Building Solutions, who made construction materials, which is why the concession stands are actually framed as mini houses. In addition, this stadium was built for under $275 million, which I know is a ton of money, but compared to the billion-dollar stadiums that exist today, it's incredible. Just give it to Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's locker. This must be. Oh!
Hopefully within the next few weeks we'll have
There was a unique charm to this stadium. Whether it was the first show on Taylor Swift's new tour, I'm still sorry Taylor, where she was soaked in rain and delivered a performance that lasted nearly until 2 a.m., or creating the production you see every game day. Damn it, not again! In a stadium that cost 20 times less than SoFi. This was a place and a people who just made it work. It was also the little things, like being the only NFL stadium that had a sizable dressing room for their mascot. And in this case, that was T-Rack. I also got to play with a sword.
Tom? I'm supposed to hold the sword. Tom? I'm supposed to hold the sword, RBT. This is 30 and 30. This is not 30 and RBT.
The Titans also were special because they were the first team to really even acknowledge us. The first one to respond to my many emails sending to every single team. They were the first one to say, yes, you are welcome here. And so a big shout out to Kinsley who made this happen. I will never forget her or the Titans' kindness. We also spoke to Adolfo Birch, the Senior Vice President and Chief Legal Officer of the Titans, about the excitement for the new stadium and what it means for Nashville.
We hope that everybody else can see the sort of value and benefit and opportunity that comes not just to have a football team playing in a new stadium, but everything else that comes around it.
After the tour, it was time for the fan event. And Nashville, well, the Southern hospitality was apparent. Everyone was so kind, accepting, and generous. So generous that even the party bike stopped and donated $25 to St. Jude, and they weren't even part of it. I was blown away by the charity and love that this city showed me, and I had an opportunity to ask what made Nashville so special.
The fact that everybody wants to help other people, everybody wants to be there for one another is one of the best experiences I've had the privilege of having growing up in this city.
And then there was the Titans' role in this city and fan base.
The Titans, like this city, it's gone through some adversity, it's gone through some changes, but it's always going to be a tough, rugged team, a tough, rugged town. No matter what happens, whether it's natural disasters, whether it's the highs, the lows, they're always going to be here.
And then after the fan event, I finally had some time to eat. I walked the streets of Nashville, stumbled into a local place, and of course, they had live music. I got back to the hotel, Johnny was still editing, and at the end of the night when we were finally done, we just stopped for a minute and talked about what had happened today and this entire trip. We had experienced so much in such little time, a breakneck pace traveling from city to city, and it was the Bengals video that had come out that night that really highlighted what this trip was. It was special. Over the past 15 days, I had met fans from all over the country, from every background, with countless stories, and they were there to support this. Now, I've worked very hard for 8 years to create a community that was open and welcoming to everyone. Yes, it's a football channel, but it's also so much more. It's the Friday night Q&As every week for the past few years, the game streams, all the times that I get to actually know people. And we're here because we love football. And based on years of raising money for charity, especially for this trip, we were also here to try and do good. And that's it. This trip exemplifies that you don't need to have millions of dollars to give away to charity or even be a perfect person. You just need the want to be good. We've seen it in Uber drivers, employees of hotels, trains, and even teams. There is so much good out here. And it's that inclusiveness that allows St. Jude to do so much good, and for me and us to be a tiny part of that. Johnny and I, we're two guys with 2 cameras and a laptop. I know that somewhere down the line, a bigger creator or company is going to do this exact same thing and blow it out of the water. They're gonna have a film crew, they're gonna have a bigger budget, they're gonna raise more money for charity, they're actually gonna get into every single stadium and not have to film on the side of a highway. They're gonna surpass this on every metric, and that's great. But for right now, on day 15, this is ours. This crazy adventure of traveling, living in hotels, meeting all these fantastic people, this is an experience that can never be taken away from us. We are here. And whether you have donated, shared, or even come out to a fan event, you are too. I'm a small fish in an ocean when it comes to the NFL, these teams, but something special is happening out here. These teams have no relation or connection to me or the videos that I make, but yet they have been so incredibly kind to us. They all have been welcoming, and the first one to do that were the Titans.
It really is awesome when you can come to a football game, sit there next to somebody you've never met in your life, and become best friends with them over a 60-minute game. That just shows you what football, what sports can do. Bring people together that have so many different things about them, come from so many different stories. They still can come together over one common thing, and that's football.
So on day 15, the halfway mark of this insane, beautiful adventure, I'm going to continue to give this my all. For the fans, for the kids, for you. Because if two guys on the road with a laptop and an insane dream can raise $1 million for St. Jude, then regardless of who or what comes next, the story of Tom Grossi, Johnny Barks, and thousands of fans who did the impossible, well, just like those champions who lined the walls of the stadiums that we visited, this will be eternal.